Welcome back to Those Happy Places, the podcast that treats theme parks, rides, and attractions like literature. I'm Buddy Duquesne.
And I'm Alice White.
And this week we're taking on one of, Alice, I gotta say, the most delightful parts about Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom. We're talking about Mickey's Toontown.
That's right, Mickey's Toontown, which is located in the very back of Disneyland, tucked away from everyone else, a magical place where the Toons can live their lives, and we get to visit and have a glimpse.
Yeah, we get to visit them there, and it's something that I remember very vividly being a big deal for me when I was a kid. And like just wanting to go straight to Toontown, and you have to walk through all that boring other stuff. Like, who cares about the giant mountain? Like just give me to Toontown.
Let's just go to Toontown.
Visit the cartoons, man. Just get me to Toontown. But it's easily a 10 to 15 minute walk to the back, and if you want to take the train, it's 2 stops. It's very far.
Make it sound like it was some huge burden to get there.
Oh man, I remember having to stop for a snack, maybe at the motel on the way there. It was very very far, Alice.
Oh, buddy.
But you know that's funny because Toontown really is kind of a thing that was brand new when we were very young. And that's an interesting phenomenon for me because Toontown is the only thing that's like that. We talked a little bit about California Adventure opening when we were maybe a little older, maybe a little bit more critical, at least a few years into its opening. But Toontown was like, we were little kids, and this was a place that was opened for little kids, and that's how lucky were we on one hand, but on the other hand, I can never really trust my memories of Toontown. They're always so rose tinted.
It was the first time I think that that Disneyland or any theme park that we were familiar with as children, at the first and last time until California Adventure was built, that the theme park got an expansion. Like it was one way, and then all of a sudden it was bigger. And because the rides, I remember certain rides becoming a thing, and being a young kid going to, a certain new attraction within the park. But this is like the thing that I remember being a brand new land, like a whole space, a whole area. And that made it special.
Yeah, and I guess Disneyland hadn't really expanded out beyond the berm before that. And for listeners who aren't familiar, the berm is this hill, this man-made hill that encircles Disneyland almost entirely. And as the park has expanded, it has gone beyond the berm, and the Disneyland Railroad runs on the berm. So it's kind of a separation wall between Disneyland and the rest of the world. Right. And it's really important to preserving that feeling of isolation when you're in Disneyland. This feeling of this being a fantastic place that isn't adjacent to the rest of the city of Anaheim.
Right, and Toontown does something funny with the berm in that they expanded the park, and you still can't see the outside world when you're in Toontown. But the back wall of Toontown that backs up to a street literally has big wooden cutouts of hills.
that implied depth that Toontown just goes on forever beyond these characters' houses that we're allowed to see. And these big hills really do work to block it off and look like there's more back there. And
which is what the berm wants to do, but Toontown takes it literally.
Yeah, it takes it very, very far in that way. It encircles the entire land in its own kind of fun fence, I guess. I can't think of another way to describe it, but the thing that Toontown does interestingly with the berm itself, the original berm, is it uses the berm as a transition space. And that's something that has always just charmed the heck out of me. Right. Is this entrance to Toontown?
Yeah, you go under the railroad, under the original boundary of the park, and through like a little mini tunnel to get into Toontown. So it's this quite literal barrier, like boundary line that separates Toontown from the rest of the park, because it's supposed to be its own like world. It's not just a collection of related attractions. It's like the first, like, it's like the original themed like land where you actually go to a place. We're gonna get Galaxy's Edge soon, which is gonna do something very similar, but
it also uses the berm as a transition.
Right. Oh, good. I'm excited about Galaxy's Edge again.
Very cool.
And so Toontown it takes that idea super literally, and you have to walk through this, and there's a gate there even that they close when it's fireworks time, because you can't be back there. That's where they launch the fireworks from, behind back there. And so they have this gate, and you can literally be shut out of this other world.
And I believe there was even kind of a story when Toontown was opened that it hadn't been built so much as like they dug under the berm one day
and discovered it.
And discovered Toontown had been there all along. And of course it had been, because Mickey and his friends had to live at Disneyland.
They had to live somewhere when they come out to see you and do your parades. Like,
right, they had to go
where
somewhere.
Did they go at night?
They went, it turns out, over the berm.
And so the residents of Toontown so graciously let us visit them.
Right. And, Alice, I've said berm a lot. But this episode, we're going to be kind of just talking about Toontown and what Mickey and his friends and the other characters being at Disneyland means, and what it adds to the park experience. And maybe kind of compare it to other kinds of meet and greets and other characters and things like that we've experienced, and just try to get to the bottom of like why is this such a big part of Disneyland's identity, and maybe what it means for the story that Disneyland tells about itself. So I'm very excited to talk about this with you.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Do you want to start us off with a little bit of history?
Sure, I'll get us started. So in 1988, the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit was released into theaters, and it was an instant success. Also in 1988, Walt Disney World in the Magic Kingdom opened a Toon-themed land for Mickey Mouse's 60th birthday. And that Toon-themed land, after it was no longer Mickey's birthday, became what eventually became Toontown in Walt Disney World. Just a couple years later, in 1993, Disneyland opened Toontown on the north end of the map, beyond the berm.
Beyond the berm.
It was never anything before. They discovered, like we said, we discovered Toontown, and it is it's a small scale recreation of the Mickey Mouse universe, where visitors can meet the characters and visit their homes, and the homes are constructed in a cartoonish style, as established kind of intermittently through canon. In various cartoons and whatnot. Donald Duck lives in a boat because he's a sailor, and Mickey's got a film barn where he can make his short films back there in the back. And Goofy's house is a bounce house where you can because he's Goofy.
Because he's so accident prone, he needs everything in his house to not hurt him when he falls onto it. Honestly, exactly. It's the ideal environment for a goof like Goofy.
Exactly. So they opened this world to provide this immersive experience into the land of a Toon, which was inspired, of course, from the film Who Framed Roger Rabbit, in which the cartoon characters live separate from humans with very little crossover. And so then they open the gates and let us cross over, and we get to go in. So it was a combination of Mickey Mouse and Roger Rabbit's worlds have combined into one thing.
And it's so funny to me because Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is one of my favorite films, maybe ever. It's an extremely ambitious project that included, I think, licenses from over a dozen studios. The largest of which, of course, were Disney and Warner Brothers. And as part of the deal, Disney got to oversee a bunch of animation and was able to secure theme park rights for this idea of Toontown. But if they had gone whole hog with it, and they kind of did, honestly, in like a 50-50 sort of way. If they had gone whole hog with it, Toontown would not be an exciting, happy place for young kids to visit. I mean, Toontown in the movie is a violent, chaotic place that is not safe for humans. I mean, like, the allegory of Who Framed Roger Rabbit and the sort of story about how Toons are an exploited people whose home is destroyed to make a freeway, which is a real thing that happened in Los Angeles in the 30s. Entire communities were paved over by these large companies so that they could build freeways.
And then again in the later part of the century, it happens all the time in LA.
Los Angeles' story is riddled with this stuff, including the entire premise of the film Chinatown. But yes, okay, take that and set that aside, set the allegory aside for a second. The literal text of Toontown is, "Oh God, never go here." It's such a scary place. I mean, Eddie is flattened. He is chased. He falls almost to his death. Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse watch and laugh.
Because being a Toon, it's
easy to
different.
Be a Toon.
Fun.
You
can't hardly ever really get hurt because you just bounce back.
Yeah, you see some birds or stars, and you are right back to being fine again. And that's the advantage of the Toons and why they become entertainers in the canon of that movie. But then you go to Mickey's Toontown, and we actually do kind of have a representation of that side of Toontown. Simultaneously, however, we have the idyllic Mickey and Friends side of Toontown as well. It's kind of funny that there's a kind of gritty urban side and a suburban rolling hills have a barn out back side of Toontown. And it's funny to me that they made it that way.
Well, yeah, because it's like a full-fledged city.
Yeah, it really is.
Got all parts.
It's meant to be a community. So over on Roger's side, not only do we have the cartoon spin, which in itself is a pretty great dark ride.
It's really fun.
It's really fun and an interesting exercise in interactivity and kind of adjusting thrill levels based on the audience. Because like if you have a really little kid with you, you're not going to spin the car that much. But
you can even spin the car to avoid seeing certain maybe scarier show scenes.
Yeah. And if you're there for the thrills, however, you can get that thing going about as fast as a teacup.
That's of course what I do when I'm on it.
Right. So it's kind of an up to you sort of ride, and I think that's really great. Because otherwise it's a pretty conventional dark ride with some fun effects, but they were definitely experimenting with that. But over on Roger's side, there's apartment buildings, the fire department, the
power plant,
there's a photography store. There's an entire gag factory, which kind of implies that like the fun stuff that the Toons use in their cartoons are manufactured
from an assembly line.
Yeah, and real, and you can just like buy a good old Acme boxing glove.
There's a dog pound.
Oh yeah, which it has it has rubber bars that you can just bend and get out of.
Yeah,
it also raises questions in a world where approximately a third of the population is dogs. And there's a mail room and post office, yeah. And there's all sorts of things, and then kind of moving over towards Mickey's There's a bank and a town square and a gazebo. There's a public transit system, the Jolly Trolley.
There's
Which
also the Ink and Paint Club. Isn't that what it's called?
the Ink and Paint Club in the queue of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
No, but there's the entrance to the Ink and Paint Club. It says it right there on there's it's a show building that doesn't actually do anything, tucked there next to Daisy's Diner is a door that says the Ink and Paint Club on it.
That is a detail, Alice.
It's right there. I found it on Google Maps to confirm.
That's incredible. And like, see, in the context of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the Ink and Paint Club has a very different connotation than I think Disney would want it to, out in their family friendly section of Toontown.
It's like a wink and a nod to a couple of different references.
Yeah. But you know, Toontown it's alive. It's got 2 big fountains and a park, not to mention the houses of the characters that we all know and love. The Mickey and Friends Fab Five, right? Mickey, Donald, Goofy, Minnie. Who am I missing? Daisy?
Pluto.
Maybe? Pluto? Who's the 5th member of the Fab Five?
It's Pluto, isn't it?
Pluto?
I'm pretty sure it's Pluto.
So Minnie is in the Fab Five, but Daisy is not?
No, well, Minnie's the hero. She's the best.
She is great.
She's been around longer.
She has been. That's true. Well, what I'm saying is they have their houses, right? And I think it's really cool that these houses exist and that they are 3-dimensional spaces that you can explore and that are themed well. But of course, there's kind of a main attraction, right? There's like a reason to be back there in terms of the houses. And Alice, I think you know that I'm gonna start to talk about Mickey's house and the film barn.
Oh man, I loved Mickey's house when I was a kid. That was my favorite. One of my absolute favorite things to do in Disneyland. I loved walking through Mickey's house.
Yeah, everything in Mickey's house is so meticulously designed. And what's interesting about Mickey's house is that you can imagine that upon opening day, Mickey's house was a glorified queue for the line to meet Mickey.
Right.
It is one big themed queue that you could easily spend an hour in if you had to. And still find something interactive and entertaining and fascinating to look at in there.
Right, there's so many details scattered throughout the house. Not like in the like almost pre-show area of where you're in the house itself. There's like a desk with stationery with his handwriting and signature. There's a TV tuned to some of his most famous cartoons.
Even his radio works.
His radio works, and you can dial it to
washing
different
machines, and you can see Mickey's laundry. It's incredible. Now, the one thing that has always kind of bugged me about Toontown, and Mickey's house in particular, is the furniture. Has this ever bugged you, Alice?
That it's super hard plastic.
Yeah, it is. It is super hard molded plastic or plaster or something. An obvious like design choice, like we need these things to stand the test of time. We can't just have them breaking down as people walk through.
They need to stay clean.
They need to stay clean. We need to be able to like spray them every day and disinfect, because a bunch of little babies will be running through here. So that's always bugged me, but then again, you can't get that really cartoony plush look out of
without being
actual
plastic
material. Yeah. So at the same time, you know, it looks perfect, and you can observe it just right. A big detail that I really love remembering is the doggy door on the stairs of Mickey's house that Pluto has crashed through and left a Pluto-sized hole. Pluto-shaped
hole with ears and everything. Where he's run through the door. But yeah, he's got a little dog bed, and there's a pair of Mickey's extra shoes by the front door. You know, like that. It looks like a lived-in cartoon house.
Yeah, and that's an incredible feat of Imagineering and design. Um,
And that's just the like getting you into the line to wait to go see
yeah,
Mickey.
that's just the front part, and the back part is where things get really interesting, Alice, because uh, as we sort of approach Mickey's backyard, which is kind of an extensive farm area where Pluto has his doghouse, and sometimes you can catch Pluto there at his doghouse.
Hmm.
And there's that fun interactive or semi-interactive part of the queue with the carrots that get stolen by gophers and stuff. Um,
That's really funny.
that's really great. You can end up in Mickey's film barn, which is a collection of memorabilia and props and set pieces from Mickey's various cartoons up to 1993, including the magic mirror from The Sorcerer's Apprentice, including, oh geez,
Oh,
I don't even know.
boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of gloves.
And
um,
a big like symphony machine that he had in one cartoon, and like all sorts of stuff. Like it's implied that Mickey is always working and is always making more movies because his
and that
cartoons
he
are
himself
movies.
and that he himself makes his cartoons in his own like personal studio.
Yeah, like he's an artist. He's not just an actor
He's a
or
director.
yeah, I mean he's more an avatar for even Walt Disney himself in this canon, in this Toontown canon. Walt had a barn that is in Los Angeles that you can go and visit. It wasn't for movies; it was kind of just like to hang out. But you can kind of imagine Imagineers thinking about ways that they could align Mickey's story to Walt's story.
Exactly.
And Mickey is not just a character; he's an entertainer and a theme park person. He's part of Disneyland. He's part of the culture. And on top of that all, he's kind of this meticulous filmmaker who lets people come and visit while he's making his movies. Because I mean, that's what he's great at. That's what he's always doing, and that's so cool to me, Alice. That like the story gets realigned. Mickey is Walt. Walt is Mickey, and that means while Mickey is here, so is kind of Walt Disney himself in this small way.
I like how you put that. That's I've always noticed the parallels there, but I never really thought to connect all of that together. That's true. Yeah. I mean, from the statue out in the middle of the plaza where Walt and Mickey are holding hands, like Mickey is an extension of Walt Disney. And when Walt Disney was no longer with us, I think the Imagineers did a lot to continue that legacy and Mickey became the face of the entire park. I mean, he already was, but giving him part of Walt's like personality, this like visionary, this like Renaissance man kind of guy, instead of just like a goofy cartoon mouse from Silly Symphony cartoons. I think was a really inspired piece of work.
Yeah, for sure. And so in the lead up to meeting Mickey, you get to, if the line is long, you get to watch some of Mickey's cartoons. And then a certain amount of guests at a time are allowed to see Mickey, and he's on set. He's on one of his sets. Sometimes he's doing Sorcerer's Apprentice. Sometimes he's doing Steamboat Willie. And anything in between, anything in the canon is on the table. And it's always a really cool moment to be like, okay, Mickey's ready to see you guys now. And then you get walked back, and like he's like, kind of just in his studio, he's waving goodbye to the last group, and he's like, come on in. Of course, Mickey
Come
doesn't.
on in. I've got time to see you and hug you and take a picture.
Yeah, and that there's a lot of appeal to that. There's this kind of like, you start to freak out a little bit. I think it's certainly helped along by the presence of all of this hype walking through his house, right? Like you kind of feel like you know him now. And like, here he is. Or maybe you don't feel like you know him. You feel like you know a lot about him, but like you've only heard about him.
And now here he is right in front of you,
finally meeting
giving
him
you a hug and a kiss and taking your picture, and he's always in some sort of fun costume. Sometimes he's Steamboat Willie. Oh, I have a picture of him as Steamboat Willie, Mickey, and yeah, like it's like he's stopped to do like a meet and greet mid shoot.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's a really cool thing to imply, that like the characters they're busy, they got stuff going on, but they're also here to say hi, and kind of giving them that like other business really brings them more to life. Now,
yeah,
Disneyland characters don't talk. Now at Disney World for a while, Mickey talked. And I know that they're kind of phasing that out. I think there was something about the way that the technology worked and the costs associated with it, where Mickey is going to talk a lot less. At Disneyland, at California Adventure, you can see Mickey talk at a couple of parades and the streetcar thing with the Newsies. Mickey will lean out and he'll be like, "I'm Mickey. Here's the Newsies." And his mouth moves, and it's very cool. His eyes blink in the right ways and stuff. It's amazing. Now, when you meet Mickey, that's not the case.
No.
And so a lot of communication is done just through movements and hand gestures and some noises that are like approved for Mickey to make.
The smacky kissy sound, or like a giggle. Doesn't he giggle?
I think he can giggle. And that's kind of a general rule for a lot of Disneyland characters, except for like face characters that are
princesses and stuff like that.
And those characters will have conversations with you. I think it's an interesting line to draw, and I'm always kind of impressed about how little that mattered to me as a kid.
Yeah, I didn't need Mickey to talk to me.
No,
I just wanted him to give me a hug.
Yeah, like but it never,
and a high five.
It never bothered me that Mickey was maybe taller than he should have been. Because Mickey's small in his cartoons. He's short. He's not mouse sized, but he spends a lot of time being smaller than other characters. Shorter than Goofy, for example, or shorter than Pete. So Mickey's on the short end of the animation scale. And when you meet Mickey at 6 feet tall, plus ears, that should be a huge leap in believability. But I think, in the eyes of a kid, probably not. And that's an interesting thing, because there are characters that are the right size exactly. For example, the princesses, right? They are exactly human size.
They're between 5'6" and 5'8". I went to that audition once. I am too tall.
You are too tall to be a princess. That's interesting, Alice.
And the people who go in the suits for the smaller characters who become costume characters like Mickey, they've got to be between 5 foot and 5'2".
Right.
Or the tall ones like Goofy, he's between 6 foot and 6'2".
Wow. So Mickey's house is this very structured, very thought out process of like build up and meeting Mickey, and then you get to walk out into Toontown and be like, what else is there to see? It's a very cool process, and it tells its own story. But there's this other thing at Disneyland that's a big deal, which is the walk around characters, right? Sometimes you're just walking around and you'll look over and like, there's Captain Jack Sparrow. You look over there, there's Chip and Dale. You take another look, oh, there's Cruella de Vil. And they're all just walking around kind of being in the park. And recently at Tomorrowland at the Star Wars launch bay, there have been opportunities for more Mickey style meet and greets where you wait in line to meet a character, and when they're ready for you, you go in and you take your picture, and there's maybe a little bit of time for a conversation and just to hang out and meet and greet, and then you go out into Tomorrowland and there's the rest of the day. And Alice, last time I was at Disneyland, I met Chewbacca. And
I would have died.
it was amazing. Meeting Chewbacca was a highlight, and it wasn't no part of it felt like a waste of time. Chewbacca gave us a hug. He noticed my Star Wars outfit. It was very cool. The picture turned out amazing. It was just so cool to hang out with Chewbacca for a minute and a half, and that's all you need, really.
I did the same thing at Epcot. I got to meet Baymax.
Oh my god.
From Big Hero 6. Yes. All I wanted, as soon as I saw that he was there, I was like, all I want in this whole wide universe is for him to hug me. And I got a big old hug, and I disappeared into his depths because he's so squishy.
Is it as cool as it looks like it would be?
It's exactly as cool.
Oh my god!
I totally vanished, and the pictures are hysterical. I'll put them up on the Twitter. I'll put them up on my Twitter at Alice White THP. Before and after, like me going in for the hug, and then, as my friend Jenna put it, he sent my head to another galaxy. It was just gone. I'm just completely gone.
just disappearing into Baymax.
It's the best. Meeting the characters is the best, even as an adult. If you can suspend that disbelief for just like a minute, and allow yourself to think, I am gonna meet this character.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It is fun, and I've been thinking about it a lot since I had that much fun meeting Chewbacca, because then we went and met Darth Vader. Ooh. And meeting Darth Vader was intimidating, which is such an interesting thing. I am an adult, Alice. I pay taxes. I have seen Star Wars, and I do not fear Darth Vader anymore, because I know that he turns out to be a good person at the end.
Yeah, but there he is, standing in front of you, breathing heavily.
Yep. Yeah, and the cast members that attend him are like, do not speak to Lord Vader. Lord Vader will speak to you. And everybody line up here, and then Vader turns around and he's like, you're a rebel spy. And I'm like, ah! I was speechless, unable to move. And so I was thinking about this experience with Chewbacca that was warm and kind and inviting, just like an experience meeting Mickey. And I was thinking about this experience meeting Darth Vader, which was cold and intimidating, but also perfect, right? Like, that's what meeting Vader should be. And I've been thinking about like the ways that the character meet and greet has some unrealized potential, because these experiences are limited. But when you can have them with the appropriate atmosphere and build up and stuff like that, they really do kind of expand beyond just kind of like, oh, haha, we all like understand the illusion of this moment. This is like kind of fun. Take a selfie, to like true experientiality. Like, you're truly meeting a character. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I'm not even sure what I mean by untapped potential, but I think there's something there.
I think that it's different to go into Mickey's house, or to go into like a special room where Darth Vader is waiting for you, versus just like, I'm walking down Main Street, and off in the corner, in that unused corner next to Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, there's Daisy Duck, who's signing autographs and saying hi. Like, and that's cute and sweet, and I'd be like, oh, look, it's Daisy. But to like go in, if Daisy was like at Daisy's diner back in Toontown, I'd be like, whoa, there she is, like in her, where she wants to be, in her, she's not just signing autographs, she's like existing in a world.
Yeah, like she's there in her element. She'd be surrounded by things that add to her presence, add to the feeling of reality.
I think there's a big difference there, and like, obviously it's important that everybody gets to see a character walk around and wave at them and say hi and stuff like that, that we don't all have to wait in hour-long lines just to meet a character. Like, yeah, you want to see them walking around Main Street, because Main Street's Main Street. Like, that's where everything happens. That's where you walk in, and to see characters milling about just like you, it makes that immersive. Yeah. But the like, yeah, immersive, there's a celebrity signing autographs in a corner versus going into their home and meeting them. And yeah, I mean, there's a big tonal difference there, and they both have their place.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about this other thing that I saw this week. Speaking of animatronics and great moments with Mr. Lincoln, um, in California Adventure right now, in celebration of the kind of autumnal season, because it is now September, there's a big area where there's a Coco performance.
Oh my gosh.
And so in the performance, there's this puppet of Miguel that is being, manipulated by this puppeteer, and it's very cool. The puppeteer is also in costume, fits right in, blends in with the rest of the performers. But there's Miguel in front of him playing the guitar and singing. The puppet is amazing. It blinks, it talks.
Isn't it? Is Miguel's feet on the puppeteer's feet, and they're moving like that kind of puppet?
Yeah, it's very
oh my
cool.
Gosh.
And it's remarkably lifelike. And I was thinking, like, okay, we're gonna do a meet and greet of Miguel from Coco, and we're gonna put a 5.5-foot person in a costume with a giant head, so that the scale looks right, based on the animated character. And I just realized to myself how, like, not good that is.
Not for every character. Not every single character needs to be in a suit like that.
Right. And I thought to myself, like, okay, this puppet really works. Like, why not the puppet hanging out, shaking hands, signing autographs? Obviously, some of that is pretty tough for a puppet to do. But I feel like, why not? Mickey should be ideally 2.5 to 3.5 feet tall. And
no, he's larger than life.
He should be about as tall as he is in the statue, the partner statue, compared to Walt.
Yeah,
he's about half Walt's size.
Yeah, like literally that's how tall he should be.
Right.
But Mickey Mouse is Mickey Mouse. Pick somebody else, because Mickey Mouse is like our guy.
Okay.
He's our Walt. He's our dude.
But imagine, if you will, for a moment, Alice, a very detailed Mickey animatronic that is 3.5 feet tall, that as you walk into his room spins around, and he's painted to look like Steamboat Willie, and he says, "Oh, hey, it's me, Mickey. Welcome to my movie barn. Here I am. I'm just about to Steamboat Willie." And he's the right size, Alice, and he's animated, and he's excited, and he's articulate, and somebody's doing the voice and helping him move, like, back behind the scenes, but it's real and it's happening, and there he is. There's Mickey Mouse. I feel like that's a huge improvement that could be made, and that the technology exists.
Maybe. I can see it. Like I really want to see this Miguel puppet, for example. I could see it, but for me right now, for as long as Mickey Mouse has been, 5.5, almost 6 feet tall with ears, that is what Mickey looks like now for me. Like, I regardless of how tall I know that he's supposed to be. Well, no, he's a different size every time. He's like mouse sized in a lot of cartoons where he's, steering the little steamboat down the river. He like can't see over the wheel or whatever. He's like itty bitty.
Yeah.
Where he's, or he's, I don't know. It's Mickey. He changes. To me, Mickey Mouse is, when I think about Mickey Mouse, he's as tall as the suit every time.
So Mickey is exactly as tall as Mickey appears.
Yes.
And I think that's to the credit of the environment that Disneyland sets up, and the ability to believe in things like that.
Yeah, I've been to his house too many times to picture how any other sized Mickey.
Fair enough. I just wanted to run that by you because I've been thinking a lot about animatronic meet and greets lately.
No, I think that would be appropriate for newer characters. A little droid like a BB-8 droid or an R2-D2 droid, meet up like that. That would be extremely cool.
Imagine K2SO.
Oh my gosh, I would literally faint.
I know.
Probably. Yeah, that would be cool. But I think that the size of the cup, because like you said, you didn't care when you were a kid how big Mickey was.
No.
He's hugging size.
Yeah. It didn't matter because there Mickey was. And that's all that mattered.
If he was a delicate little animatronic, you couldn't give him a hug.
You could not, and you could probably not even high five the animatronic.
Yeah. So I think that's where you have to draw the line. If it's a character, like just like a cool character doing like a show, and you're like, wow, neat. Or if it's like a lovable Baymax huggy character, he's got to be huggable size. Okay. He can't be little.
Fair. You know, that reminds me a little bit of Turtle Talk with Crush.
Oh, yeah. Or the
a
similarly
that's impossible in like would not make sense in the flesh. You could not meet a giant turtle and be like, I believe this.
Right. He's got to be this really cool piece of animation where he can be customized. Like he can talk and interact with the kids, but he's on a screen. Yeah. Like he's got to be. And kids know that because, you know, that screen might as well be the glass of an aquarium.
Yeah, and I think that's the conceit of that attraction. So anyways, that's all to say that I think character meet and greets are great. I think there's a lot to be said for the feelings that they can produce, no matter your age. And I think that not only are they... Well, Alice, I don't know how to say this next part, and I'm starting to worry. Can I step into your office? Can we have an aside?
Yeah. I mean, sure. I mean, just follow me right over here. I'd like
to have an aside for a second, if we could.
Okay.
Okay.
What do you want to say?
Alice, I'm pretty sure that having characters at Disneyland completely blows the lid off of literally everything about animation.
Okay, do tell.
And I'd like to start you off by saying I have had this theory for many years, and I am only now starting to realize its true potential for connecting the animated world to our world. And I think Disney has been trying to tell us this, but has never stated it explicitly because it's too mind-bending.
Okay, mind-bending enough. We needed to be in the office to talk about it. This is a secret. Right. Well, can't let anybody know.
If Disney ever hears this, they'll probably try to erase me. So I need to.
Well, we'll get it on the recording for posterity.
All right, good. So, Alex, this is the grand unified theory of animated characters at Disneyland.
All right, shoot.
In 1993, when Disney opened Mickey's Toontown,
discovered
Mickey's Toontown, opened it to the public. One of the biggest things on television at the time was the Disney Channel, and one of the biggest things about the Disney Channel at the time was the Cartoon Afternoon. And this was a series of animated cartoons that were kind of lower budget, lower grade stuff, but that only 90 kids only 90s kids will remember. So cartoon shows like The Goof Troop, Tailspin, Gummy Bears, DuckTales, all of which are, you know, classics of their genres. I'm also thinking about Darkwing Duck and Chippendale's Rescue Rangers.
That was my favorite one.
Great shows, all of which are great shows. And some of which hold up better than you would think. But something that's so interesting about this particular lineup of shows is that it used classic Disney characters, some of which had not been in a feature-length animated film or feature short in decades, to tell new stories in new settings, sometimes in completely new genres, but with the same characters, with the same name and personality. And this is where things start to get weird, Alice, because Baloo went from a bear in the jungle who sang songs about the simple life to a bear on an island who flies planes in service of an orangutan who runs a juice bar against a sky wolf pirate. But his name was still Baloo, and he still had a laid-back, cool attitude about everything. Goofy went from a ostensibly single male goof who made a lot of mistakes while a narrator told him how bad he was at things, to a single dad of a not young baby, like of a 12, 13-year-old kid.
Well, he's like going off to college age.
No,
right?
that's in an extremely goofy movie that was many years later.
That wasn't that many years
many.
later. All right,
many.
Fine. Max is a teen.
Max is a teenager. So the single father of a teenager who lives next to Pete, who is traditionally a Mickey villain, but in this is cast as the kind of over the top jerk of a dad to his own teen son. And
when did Pete get a teen son?
I don't know, but Petey Jr. exists. Chip and Dale went from mischievous chipmunks to running I think they're part of the Rescuers universe, actually, and I haven't checked my stats on that connection yet.
It makes sense, but yeah, they run like a search and rescue.
Yeah, like a mystery solving mouse team. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but we'll roll with it. Donald lives with his nephews at Uncle Scrooge's mansion. They go on adventures. Their pilot is also the sidekick of a superhero on the weekends. It's insane how these characters kind of got jumbled up, shifted around, and then kind of resold, but not as different characters, as the same characters in kind of redesigned places, but not that different, except outside of some genre markers. So
okay, so your evidence is substantial. What does it mean, buddy? What does it mean?
What it means for Disneyland, however, is this: if you can be walking around and meet Baloo can be on his way to shoot Tailspin, or can be basking in the glory days of the Jungle Book. But he's gone from, because of the cartoon afternoon, he's gone from washed out icon to working actor. And now things are getting interesting because not only is Mickey a director, but his contemporaries are actors who work for a living, who are still making new stuff, and who are trying out new roles. Baloo is the Tom Cruise of the animated universe.
And Tailspin is a Top Gun franchise?
And Tailspin is Top Gun. Thank you, Alice, for understanding me.
Okay, so do you think then maybe that like shows like Tailspin, like those shows are shows, the characters in them are actors, and they film those shows maybe in the film barn?
That's an interesting question, because I think, yes, I think that's a good instinct. I want you to go with that.
Baloo is an actor, and when he goes to work, he commutes into Disneyland, walks into Mickey's house, goes backstage into the film barn, and films an episode of Tailspin, and then goes home.
Or they film an episode of Tailspin somewhere else in the park, or some other location.
Okay, they shoot on location, but maybe for studio work.
Yeah, studio work could be done at Disneyland, and that's easy to believe because these characters live and exist here. And that's not a tough thing. But Alice, I got one more kind of thing to spin at you about this, though. At Disneyland, tailspin at you. At Disneyland, you can meet villains, scary villains. Recently, it seems like every time I'm there, Cruella de Vil is just out and about, and she's
spooky.
a bad person, and she's terrifying. She will run you over to make a dog coat, and that's bad. She's bad. But at Disneyland, she's maybe a little, I don't know, she's a little mean.
A little grumpy.
Yeah, she's a little grumpy, but she's not evil. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, under the theory you just said, the Jungle Book is a documentary about an actual bear that then became an actor and starred in the hit television show Tailspin. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering where that line gets drawn for the villains. I think what Disneyland is saying is that those movies are really always just movies. Cruella, she's an actress. She'll show up and drive a car over some people to make her dog coat, but she's like not a nice person in real life, because like we're not lying to you, the movies aren't lies, but she is like a person you can be around and not fear for your life in real life.
Right, and they're signing. They'll all sign autographs in your little autograph book. Like I was saying before, you can just see them on the corner in Main Street, because this is like, because if Disneyland, say, was like a microcosm of, say, the city of Los Angeles, for example, and each thing was like each land was a neighborhood, and you've got your celebrities walking around signing autographs and making movies and stuff like that, and the movies that Disney releases are the products of those experiences, then you're just doing like a studio tour, like a tram ride at Universal or whatever, but it's a walking tour and you get to ride rides and meet people while you're at it.
I think like not only is it a studio tour, but it's kind of an affirmation, like these places, these people that you see on the screen and that you kind of know and love for that performance, you can meet them and they are real. They're just not like, they're not psychopaths. Hades, you can meet Hades and he's not on fire. It's like hair, it's normal.
He's not on fire and he's not literally like king of the underworld. He's just like a guy.
He's just James Woods, but blue. So, still pretty bad. But like you can meet these characters and it's not, especially with the villains, it's never going to feel dangerous. It might feel a little intimidating, especially with Darth Vader, but like that's interesting, because when I met Darth Vader, my belief wasn't I'm meeting Darth Vader the actor. My belief there was, this is Darth Vader, he's mad at me. And that maybe means that my whole theory doesn't mean anything. But I think with the inclusion of Toontown and the lampshading of Mickey as filmmaker in its construction, and then the work that was being done on the Cartoon Afternoon and the kind of almost meta use of the characters at the time, that something was being said, at least. And I think that something was you can still believe this, but maybe a little less literally than we imagined at first. Like, take it down one notch of believability.
I'm gonna not to prolong this conversation just even further, but what if instead of, no, it might not be as just like one notch less real than you think it is. What if it's magic? What if it's not like, oh, well, these are all actors walking around being actors before going off to their next set? What if it was literally you're in a magical place and the things like, it's part of the immersion that everybody loves about Disney parks so much, and why everybody's always singing the praise of why Disney is what Disneyland parks, Disney parks are the kings of theme parks. It's because you feel like you've been immersed in magic. So what if it's not these actors are, or maybe it is, maybe it still is, these actors are walking around before going to their next shoot, or like being celebrities signing autographs and stuff like that, but it's not because what you've seen in the movies isn't as real, or like making you aware like, hey, that's a movie. But what if it's literally just like magic?
Yeah, we just kind of magically pulled them off the screen and here they are.
Yeah. And they're in the real world with real world like ethics and stuff. They're not gonna like you pull them out. It's like
it's not like they just come out of the screen.
They come out of the screen as actors in the film that you loved, and the film that you loved was awesome, and it was totally real, but magically we pulled out these actors for you to meet. I don't know, magic.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Why wouldn't, like, if we've got literal like 5-foot tall mice running around and literal princesses and fairies who can give you hugs and talk to you and stuff. Like, why not magic?
That's true. And I think Disneyland in general says that. There's even kind of that evocation as you go through those tunnels under the train on your way through the main gate. It's like, here you cross out of today,
the world, and into the land of yesterday, tomorrow,
and fantasy.
And
so that is saying nothing here is a real place. This is a magic place.
This is literally magic.
It is beyond the real. It is super real.
Because, like, what if Disney actually discovered actual real magic and is pretending to be a theme park this whole time, is what I'm saying.
Oh, that's what you're saying.
I'm like, what if it's literally magic? I'm not saying like this is the story Disney's telling. I'm saying, like, I'm going with you. What if this is literally magic?
Yeah, okay. For answers on that, Alice, I think I would recommend listeners go to Neil Gaiman's American Gods.
Oh, good. We're back to that.
Yeah. But yeah,
such a good one.
Absolutely. I think maybe there is a little bit of magic here, and the magic is the complicated fiction that is worked around these characters, and the way that it can pass between being constructed and feeling very real. And I think that's what's special about meet and greets, and what makes Toontown such a cool experiment is this idea that it is a real thing, and it is here, and we discovered it. And if you squint just right, that's real, that's true. And if we accept that that's true, then what that means is that so are the feelings, and that's what Disney's chasing, I think, in the design of their parks.
And I think they've nailed it
time and time again.
It's magic.
I cannot wait to pass beneath the berm and approach Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Oh God, I'm so excited.
Like, that will be a moment that leaves a very definite impact on me, I'm sure. And to sit down in a Star Wars cantina and have a libation for adults.
Oh, you best believe that's
on the list.
It's 100% the first thing I'll be doing.
Sitting there for as long as they will let me.
In whatever wretched hive of scum and villainy they create for me, I'm getting fully immersed.
I'm hoping that there are more than are being reported, more wretched hives than we know of. Well, Alice, it sounds like our conversation about Toontown and character meet and greets and the weirdness thereof has come to an end.
That's right, Buddy. But as listeners well know, the conversation continues on the internet.
On the internet?
On the internet. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at Alice White THP.
And I'm at Buddy_Duquesne. Remember, Duquesne is spelled DUQUESNE.
And between the two of us and using the hashtag #ThoseHappyPlaces, we're always talking about theme parks and rides and attractions. We've been on a Galaxy's Edge kick lately, but we want to talk to you more. So if you have any thoughts about this episode or past episodes, always tweet at us. We are literally always on Twitter. I'm never not on Twitter.
And Twitter has been such a great place for us. And Alice, I want to take a moment to plug one of my other things. So through Twitter, I was contacted, or rather, maybe I stumbled into a help wanted post from the Mythos series. It's an audio drama podcast. So that's at Mythos series on Twitter, and they were looking for a dashing and handsome voice actor to play the critical role of Spaceport Control in their debut episode. And Alice, I thought of you right away.
Yes, dashing and handsome.
But unfortunately, you were not available that day. And I said to myself, well, I am neither dashing nor handsome, but I do have a microphone.
and if I may say so, a rather dashing voice.
You didn't just dashing?
And handsome.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. So yeah, I recorded the spaceport control lines for the first episode of Mythos, and I think you guys should all check it out. It's a really great podcast. I'm excited to have even been a very small part of it. It is space travel meets magic.
That sounds amazing.
And it follows a young mage who finds herself crossing the galaxy in search of a mysterious and ancient relic. And that's, I think, going to be the arc of the first season. And let me tell you guys, it was a really cool treat to listen in and hear my voice. And everybody else's voice. It's a very well produced podcast with really amazing sound design. So please check them out. Mythos the Series, at Mythos the Series.
That sounds great. Can I plug something else that I'm doing?
Yeah, plug your thing.
Okay. TH Ponders and I have a monthly podcast called Rogue Fun, a podcast story, where we every single month until the end of time are going to be rewatching Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and talking about it. This month's episode, we ran so long that actually you are in luck that in September you will be hearing 2 entire episodes of Rogue Fun, a podcast story. We are having such a great time and have such wonderful interactions with Star Wars fans on Twitter. So if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, you can find us on Twitter at RogueFunPod, or using the hashtag RogueFunPod.
Alice, Rogue Fun is my favorite podcast right now. Like,
wait, really?
I listen to it the moment it drops, and I listen to it intently, usually while crying, and it's just such an amazing, thoughtful production that you and Ponders are putting on. It is so cool. Everybody must hear Rogue Fun. It has changed everything about what I thought about Rogue One.
I know that your opinion has changed, and believe me, you got a real big shout out in episode 2, in September episode 2.
I'm looking forward to it.
Don't you fret, because I call you out real good.
Okay, good. I'm ready.
Well, yeah, that's me. And if we appreciate you all listening and interacting and tweeting at us, stay tuned for some new fun developments from those happy places. We're both so addicted to making these podcasts that we want to do more. So yeah, keep your eyes open. Follow us on Twitter and on Facebook, facebook.com/thosehappyplaces, for updates and conversations you don't want to miss.
Definitely. Alice, did you know that if our audience is listening to us right now, then they're hearing our theme music?
Is our theme music called Golden Gate by the California Feetwarmers, featuring Phil Alvin?
Yes, you can find the Feetwarmers on YouTube or on their website, californiafeetwarmers.com.
Excellent. What about additional music, Buddy?
Oh, well, Alice, any additional music that our audience heard came from Podington Bear, which is a amazing artist who made all of their work available on the Free Music Archive. You can check all of that out and other music at thefreemusicarchive.org.
And if you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tell your friends. And be sure to find us online at thosehappyplaces.com.
That's right. Alice, I think I'd like to say thank you to all the listeners.
I also would like to say thank you to the listeners and to you, my best friend, Buddy.
Oh, Alice, thank you for being on the show with me, and I hope we return to those happy places.